In this example, I'm excited to share with you a very basic Pandas tutorial. What we'll be doing is using Pandas to work with some data inside of an Excel workbook. I will pull that workbook up so we can see it. This data is linked down below, so if you would like to follow along step by step completely, then feel free to download it and use it alongside me. But what this is salary information from tech workers from last year. So we'll be using this data and we'll do things like get averages and summations from this data using Pandas. We'll do this all inside of a WayScript layer. That way we can share this information and this code with our coworkers and other people. So getting started, we will create a layer and we can name it whatever we would like. I'll just name mine Pandas and we will jump right in. So getting started, we'll go to the develop on the left, and here is our file browser. What we need to do here is to pull in our information. So in my case, that is a local spreadsheet, and I will pull it into the file browser. From here, you see that it's going to take a second to load in, and we have it loaded in. Now it's time to start thinking about how we can use code to work with our data. So anytime we want to use code, a good starting point is to put in a requirements.txt. In here, we need all the requirements for a project. In this case, that is just Pandas. We'll save this and go and create a Python script. Just like before, you can name this whatever you would like, and we'll jump into that Python script. To begin working with Pandas, which is our requirement we just put in, we first need to import it into our Python script. So we'll say import Pandas. Since we'll be referencing this a lot, we might want to put a shorthand for this so we can import it as PD. What this means is we can reference the Pandas library just by using PD within our script. Our first step to working with data within Pandas will be to import our data. So Pandas makes this very simple. They have a thing called a data frame, which is just a very similar structure to a table or an Excel workbook. We can say df, which is a Python variable. We'll set that equal to that Pandas library import. And then there's a method called read. And here, after our underscore, we have many different file formats that we can use to upload our data. In our case, we'll need CSV because our file is a salaries.csv. But if it is a XLSX file, it might be something like read Excel. If you're working with something like HTML data, we could put HTML. And there's several more that I'll link down below too. So just make sure that you reference the correct file format. Then within our blank, what we'll do here is put the file path to our file. In our case, it's the same directory, so it will just be salaries.csv. If this lived inside of a folder, then we would put that folder name first, and then slash, and then the file name. Perfect. So what this is doing is reading in all information from our salaries.csv and putting it into a Python object of df. Now we can work with that df object by saying something like print. We'll use df. Data frame has a method called head, and this shows the top so many lines of your data frame. So if we want to see the first 10 lines, we can do something like this. We'll save our file. How WayScript works is we're getting an entire environment here, so we'll need to import Pandas into the environment. We can do that by saying pip install, and then we will read in our requirements.txt. And what this will do is install all requirements in our requirements.txt into our environment. We just had Pandas, so that's the only install, but if you had many more, it would install those as well. Perfect. So we have Pandas installed, and now we can use it inside of our environment. So we'll say Python, and then to execute Python scripts, it will be the name of that script. So workdata.py is mine, and we can hit return. You see that we get back the first 10 lines of our CSV inside of our terminal. So this is just one way to get some basic information about our data frame. We can do other things using Pandas, such as print all the columns in our data frame. We can comment out a script if we no longer want it to execute with a hashtag or a pound sign, and we will execute this. So here's all the columns inside of my workbook that we can use. So far, we've only talked about how we can view information, but now let's talk about how we can start working with it. So we'll do simple operations on our workbook. A simple one that you might want to do in our case here is to sum a column. So you could imagine this data is coming all from your company and you want to see the entire salary that you've been paying to all your workers. We can do that by saying something like print. We'll say df, and here what we'll say is a column name. So salary is the column that we want to work with. And now once we have that column indexed by putting it in square brackets after our df, we can apply a method to it. In our case, we want to do a summation, so that is .sum. This is one way that we can index data frames, is by using square brackets on a column. Once we get into more complex interactions within a Pandas data frame, we might want to do other things, but I'll show you those once we get to them. So we're pulling out salary, doing a summation, we'll save our file, and now let's execute our script. You see that we get a simple number, and this is just a summation of that column. Let's continue on. We will comment out this line. Additionally, I forgot to mention that all this code will be on GitHub, so if you just want to copy it, then feel free to. Next, let's do a conditional sum. You might want to only do a summation on a certain subset of people within your data frame. This might be you want to only find people who are working as a data scientist, and you want to do a summation on those salaries. We can do this. We'll create a second data frame. So we'll call this one filter df because we will filter on our main data frame here. So our filter df will be df.loc is a new method. Df square brackets doing the normal indexing. We'll say job title, and next we'll say is equal to data scientist. So to explain this line fully, what we're doing is the same way above that we pulled out a column. We're doing that here, and we're using an operator, a double equal sign. And what this is saying is this column's values equal to data scientist. What that is doing inside Pandas is creating an array or just a list of numbers that is either true or false. Using these booleans, what we can do is pass those to our data frame using .loc. So anytime that a true response is in our array that we're generating here, then that row will carry on to our filter df. Anytime that this value is not true, so the array is false at that position, then it does not continue on to our filter df, and those values are dropped. So hopefully that makes sense. Essentially, we're just creating true or false values, and if the value is true, pass it on to this df. Finally, we'll just say print filtered df. We'll do an index to pull out the salary column, and then we'll do a summation. So this will be the value of the summation of all salaries of data scientists in our workbook. We'll save our file and we will execute again. You see that data scientists have about a third of the salaries as our total amount. So we will comment these out and continue on. Let's say now that instead of a summation, we are looking to hire a new data scientist and we want the average value of a salary from our data. So we will generate an average. We do this much the same way that we do here. So we will copy this line and put it here. Generating this average is to show you different methods of what we can do to a column. And these will be linked down below in the Pandas documentation. But all we've done so far is using sum. Instead, this time, let's use a mean. We'll save this value, execute again. After executing, I commented out one too many lines. We'll save that and execute again. And now you see that we get the average data scientist value at 309,000. One last thing I want to show you in the basics of this tutorial is, let's say we want to generate unique values. We can do this the same way. So let's say print df. We'll do our indexing again of job title, and then we'll just use a simple method of unique. And this will give all the unique values within our workbook that we can use. So we will execute that and get back all unique job titles within our data. So hopefully this was a simple intro to help you get started using Pandas and a good jumping off point to see how you can do conditional indexing, how you can do simple operations, and how you can start to think about using the built-in Pandas methods to get the information that you need from your workbook. There'll be a follow-on tutorial to this one in the future, so if there's any questions or any job tasks that you need help with within your data using Pandas, be sure to write those in the comments below, and we'll be happy to help you out. Until next time.